Hello and welcome. My name is Lily Kalish-Gersh, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement and Special Projects for AJC Project Interchange. Project Interchange brings global opinion leaders and policymakers to Israel for customized, high-level educational experiences. Thank you for joining us today for 10-7, What Have We Learned? Where Are We Going? With Miri Eisen. At the end of the briefing, we'll have about 20 minutes for questions. You can submit your questions via the Q&A feature on Zoom at any time. This is a somber week, but I must say, it seems fitting for us as a PI community to honor the memory of those murdered on 10-7 and in the year since, with the pursuit of greater knowledge and understanding. As we learn together, while also holding our hearts those hostages still being held in Gaza. Truly, thank you so much for joining us today and for being friends and allies of Israel. It's now my pleasure to introduce PI's National Chair, Matthew Bronfman, who will tell you more about today's speaker.
Thank you, Lily. As you all know, this October 7th marked 1 year since Hamas attacked Israel and killed over 1,200 men, women, and children during the Jewish holiday, taking hundreds more captive. The last 12 months have been plagued by ongoing war, trauma, displacement, and increased anti-Semitism at home and abroad. Fortunately, Project Interchange has not wavered in its ongoing mission to bring world leaders to Israel. Since October 7th, 1 year ago, we have sent 11 delegations of political, media, and civic leaders to Israel. They met with survivors of the Nova Music Festival, talked about Israel's war on multiple fronts, and saw the country for themselves, just as you did on your respective delegations. It has been a sad but singular honor to be the national chair of PI during these difficult times. I look forward to the day when the hostages are returned and there is peace in Israel. But I also know that our delegations to Israel will continue, just as programs like this will continue for our alumni. We are so fortunate today at this very fragile moment, fraught moment, to have acclaimed PI speaker, retired Colonel Miri Eisen, with us to discuss what Israel has learned from the challenges of the past year and what the future holds for the Israeli people and body politic. Miri Eisen is a senior fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University in Herzliya. During her 20 years in the IDF, she served in a variety of positions, including the intelligence officer of the Regional Border Brigade, an intel officer in the Israeli Airborne Division, and the assistant to the Director of Military Intelligence, the first woman to serve in many of these capacities. After retiring from the military, Eisen served as the Israeli government spokesperson during the Second Lebanon War in 2006 and as International Press Secretary to Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Thank you all for joining. Miri, the floor is yours.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I feel so fortunate that I'm getting the chance to talk to you all tonight. I'm with my glasses on because I'm at home and I have to look at the camera and read some things. Every once in a while, I want to take the glasses off and see you, even if I can't see you. And it's October 9th. And I go, okay, October 9th. And then I go, are you kidding me? October 9th? The state of Israel, the people of Israel have been in a war, in a harsh war. War is harsh for everybody. From October 7th, 2023, that's over 368 days. And I put it into that perspective because it's kind of like, how does it feel right now to be part of Israeli society, a society, and I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about society, about us people who live here and have been in a war from October 7th. And I want to try and talk a bit about us as a society, about the challenges that we face, security, militarily, the combination of those, and try and get a glimpse of what I think, looking into the future now from October towards the end of 2024 and even towards 2025. There's going to be lots of time for questions at the end. Please feel free to use that. This is an opportunity. I hate being a lecturer. I love having a conversation. Conversation means questions. Please feel free to reach out through the Q&A and ask questions. So let's start for a moment from a very introspective aspect of what it's like here right now, post-October 7th, a year later. Now, as a country, as a people, and this is something that I feel that people don't understand outside, they show October 7th as an event, but October 7th never ended. October 7th started a war We've been in war from October 7th. I literally, as a person with a lot of connections, both down south and up north, because it's something that for many years, including some of you, I'm sure, I've been with the different delegations of Project Interchange, both down to the perimeter around the Gaza Strip, up to the Israeli northern border, or inside the city of Jerusalem. And I say that because I meet you outside, and I always love meeting people. I haven't had the time yet, as Miri, to mourn anybody. That's not about me specifically. How can you mourn when you still are fighting? How can you mourn when you still have 101 hostages now and over this year, as that number keeps changing in that sense, because Hamas has never told us who's there? How can you, just look in the back and sit down and be sad for a moment? We haven't had the time to do that. And one of the things is Israeli society that it hasn't surprised me, but it's one of the only things I can say that makes me happy. I don't want to say joyous, is that we have had over this last year the capacity to withstand challenge after challenge after challenge. That means that we're sad, we're angry, it's harsh, but we haven't collapsed. We are here and we're strong and resilient and withstanding it. I'm still standing. Every single Israeli has their backstory. My entire family, myself, I'm a retired colonel, but my husband's a colonel. He's been called up pretty much from October 7th. All three of my kids, this event, it's not a one-day event. It's a year-long war that will still continue, have all been in service this entire year. Every single person in their home, meaning that this war is not something that affects the people down south, that affects the people up north. No. This is a war that affects every one of us. And I say up front, it's a little after 7 p.m. here in Israel. There have been a lot of sirens in the north of Israel, including in the big city of Haifa. And yesterday and the day before and the day before that, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., there may be a siren. If so, I have to up and leave and go to my safe area, which is, of course, what you want me to do. I hope that won't happen. So where are we a year into this war? And when I say, where are you into this war, Israeli society changed on October 7th. I can't tell you where we will be in 2025. I know that we are in the middle of a change, which war always brings change. And what you want to hope is that it brings a change at the end to the better. But right now, we're still in the very harsh, realistic portions of a war. And here, it's very much what I'm going to present is an Israeli presentation in the sense that it's from my point of view. Feel free, push back, talk. I will address a lot of the different forces around us. In Israel, on October 7th, and for the last year and 3 days, not for the last 3 weeks, Israel has been fighting a multi-front war. I want you to think about that for a moment on that different of perspective. The attack on October 7th was done by Hamas into Israeli territory. They wanted to both conquer, hold hostages, and hold it. And at the end, they came in, they butchered, they killed, and took the hostages and went back into the Gaza Strip. But on October 8th, that's a year and 2 days ago, Hezbollah joined in. And when we talk about what Hezbollah in the last 3 weeks, and as if disconnected from Hezbollah that has attacked Israel, so not every single day since October 8th, because there were days that they chose, Hezbollah, not to attack, but every day that they chose, they attacked, and they have attacked Israel before the last 3 weeks, before September of 2024, they had already fired into Israel over 8,000 rockets. 8,000, that's just Hezbollah. Hamas, in those first few weeks, the first day, the second day, the third day, so it was Hamas firing in rockets and Hezbollah firing in rockets. Hamas fired into Israel in and around 12,000 rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israel. Hezbollah, until September 2024, fired in 8,000. We now are October 9th, 2024, and Hezbollah is already reaching 14,000 rockets, meaning in these last 3 weeks, where Israel has been on the offensive against that Hezbollah that has been attacking us from October 8th, Hezbollah has doubled, tripled, quadrupled the amount of rockets and projectiles that they fired into Israel. When you look at the war after a year and you look at it through the victims, the horrible aspect of the uninvolved civilians, I put that out there from the beginning, the immense horrific aspect of October 7th is that it was planned by the leaders of Hamas. Can you imagine sitting down and planning to do an attack like that at the different communities in the south of Israel on a Saturday morning against all of the people who were there? That was planned. That was not something that happened spontaneously. But not only was it planned, and that multi-pronged type of attack that they did was planned, the more we understand in hindsight, because it was an absolute colossal failure of the intelligence arena that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But on that day, and as we understand it more, into their plan, they had both the aspect of the atrocities. People don't want to read what they wrote, because everybody says, how did you fail? You had the plan, and in the plan it says all of the atrocities, and it's built into it. I'm going to say right now, as a scholar, as a semi-academic, as somebody who now also writes and lectures at Reichman University about these different terrorism and counterterrorism issues, that I hate saying what I'm going to say right now, but I do want to share it in that sense, that what I'll call atrocities, which include a variety of different aspects, are aspects that are known in these type of terror wars worldwide. The butchering of a family, the making the family look at the butchering of each other of the family as they kill all the different members, the mutilation of the bodies, of genitals, of all sorts of different aspects. We never had that here. And I say that because part of the colossal intelligence and operational failure that we're trying to face and to change, part of that has to do with a term that we use in intelligence, which is called unthinkability. I've been thinking about unthinkability a lot over the last year, because if you can't think of something happening, it's very hard for you to in your own way, prepare yourself for what will happen. If I tell you that there's going to be a storm and there's a storm, you're probably going to be better prepared than if the storm takes you by surprise. If you don't understand what lightning sounds like and suddenly you hear it and it scares you. In Israel, and this is something, if I said that Israeli society has changed, this is both society and the military. The biggest change that's happened is that the unthinkable, the unseen came into our lives. I now see it. I now think it. I can't unthink it anymore. I can't unsee it. Hezbollah was planning to do an October 7th attack. Hezbollah openly said in the last 5-6 years, and when I say Hezbollah, it's not just Hassan Nasrallah, who was their main terror orator, but in addition to him, they put out clips and movies. Go and look at their website. They're very proud of it. The force that we call the Radwan Force, which is named after another big terrorist, but Radwan Force was preparing, putting weapons, having the exact same type of ideas, meaning the combination of motorcycles, pickup trucks, jeeps, paragliders, all along the border on the Lebanese side, underground, hidden in arsenals, so that they could come in as individuals who are dressed just like you and me, go into these arsenals that they put in these caches of weapons all along the Israeli border, and they were going to attack, and they had a name for it. They called it Operation Liberation of the Galilee. Liberation of the Galilee. Hamas came in and called it the Al-Aqsa flood. They wanted to get to Jerusalem. Hamas came in, and I don't know in hindsight if they had wanted to conquer an area and wait for the IDF and have hostages and make it hard. They chose. They had a plan. And on that Saturday, they took the hostages and went back and did not leave these different forces in the ground. And they did the most horrific, heinous type of attack, but Hezbollah was planning to do the same. And in the last year, what Israel has been trying to do is to fight a war that it had not thought of. Remember the unthinkable? We did not think, not of Hamas doing the kind of attack that we were looking at from Hezbollah, but even when I say that Hezbollah was planning it and showing it, and the IDF was preparing itself for that kind of an attack done by Hezbollah, that's where we were on October 7th, 2023. If you look at it right now, and again, we're a year into this as we look at it differently, the Hamas attack so took us by surprise. The atrocities were so unthinkable that they literally made us chaotic, and we're not usually a chaotic country. It was the failure both of understanding what Hamas was doing, of understanding that we actually had the plan before, of what the implications were, the unthinkable type of atrocities they were due. So you did not have the intelligence awareness, you did not have the operational capability to stop it. And what Israel has been doing in the last 3 weeks against Hezbollah is what I'm going to call in my military terms, and I will address the issue of the civilians, but what I'm going to call in my military terms, we are preempting the same plan that Hezbollah had, only Hezbollah is Hamas on steroids. Hezbollah has attacked us every single day since October 8th. They're very proud of it. They joined in. They didn't join in after Israel responded. They joined it in from day one. And the attack itself that they've done into Israel, literally in that sense, up north, created a buffer zone in Israel where there are communities that some of you in the past have been here, and I've taken you to these different communities, or somebody else has, up north along the Israeli-Lebanese border, where you had a whole buffer zone on the Israeli side that you could not go into. And those people have been evacuated pretty much from October 8th. And you have not just tens of thousands of evacuees that are from the south where their communities were destroyed. You have tens of thousands of evacuees from the north that left those homes because Hezbollah was targeting them with all of their different types of projectiles. I've talked in that sense about different aspects of how this works out. Where does intelligence kind of come into this thing? October 7th, when it comes to Hamas, when it comes to the Gaza Strip, when it comes to pretty much everything that has to do with that, is a colossal failure. It's a failure of every level. The Israeli intelligence had the Hamas plan. They looked at it and pretty much said, oh, that they may want to do something like that, but it's just dreams. And I can't unthink that anymore. It means that it very much impacts the way that I look now, both at Hezbollah and at other threats, because Hamas were not only not deterred, they did the act, and the act that they did was so brutal that from then on, I'm like, I have to protect against and preempt against anybody else doing the same kind of attack. And you go, oh, it's enough that Hamas did it. This is Miri being sarcastic. I have this tendency all of the time. I need to stop sarcasm, but it's part of the way that I contend with the very harsh things that I talk about all of the time. When we talk about what Hamas was doing and the atrocities that they committed, and the fact that I can't unthink it right now, think also of the colossal failure of the intelligence community who had the information, did not understand the information. One is unthinkable. You read that. You read in it that they're going to do atrocities, and that was unthinkable to me. So I read that and I thought, yeah, me too. But there's a different additional aspect to what happened when it comes to Hamas in the south, and that's what we call blindness. When you have all the information, but you think that you understand it, and you're not seeing that, you're not putting the pieces of information together correctly. And the term that we use in intelligence is the term of a concept. You have to have some kind of a concept. And here for a moment, I want to turn north and talk about intelligence, because the Israeli concept, which is a colossal failure that we can't fix when it comes to the South, to the Hamas, to the attack, to what it did and what it's doing to Israeli society with 101 hostages still there. Israel was preparing itself, and I say Israel, the communities, the IDF, the security, everybody was looking, I keep doing this in my hands in that way, to the north, to not what was called Hezbollah, but to the northern arena, to the combination of Hezbollah, Arabic-speaking Shiites in Lebanon who are Lebanese. The other Hezbollahs, there's more Hezbollah than just the one inside Lebanon. Hezbollah was founded in Lebanon by the Lebanese Shiites in 1982, very much inspired by the Islamic Revolution in Iran, which is a Shiite Islamic revolution. They said, wow, let's do that as well. And in time, there are additional Hezbollahs inspired by the Islamic Revolution in Iran, both in Iraq and in Syria. The Houthis in Yemen are a similar type of thing. And all of them, what they have in common is that they're inspired by the ideology of the Islamic Revolution in Iran and the Islamic Revolution of Iran from 1979, from Khomeini through Khamenei, the two religious leaders of this Islamic revolution. Both of them have put at a very high spot the aspect that Israel, hi, that's me, is a cancer to the world, that we need to be eliminated destroyed, eradicated. That's in the ideology, both of the Islamic regime of Iran and in the charter of Hezbollah. And they found common ground with additional very extreme Islamist groups. This is not about all Muslims at all. This is not about all Arabs. This is not about the Palestinians per se. This is about the view of Israel as being this entity that I apologize for being sarcastic about something so harsh, but it's kind of like you just erase Israel and everything's wonderful in the world. So that was me being very sarcastic again, because again, just go and read the way that it's done, the way that they talk about it. Khamenei, over the last year, both after Hassan Nasrallah was killed openly by Israel, after Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Tehran, allegedly by Israel, certainly the Islamic regime of Iran accused us and the rest of the world accepts it as such, that Khamenei will say, I read his weekly sermon, and in it, every single week, Israel is the cancer of the world. It needs to be cut out and destroyed because Israel is the cancer of the world. And I say that because here we are, a year into it. And the worst part of our year of war, which is not over, is that not only did Hamas attack us brutally, not only did Hezbollah immediately join in, not only have the other Iranian proxies, because some of them are direct proxies, like the ones in Yemen, like the ones in Iraq, let alone Hezbollah, which is both a proxy, but not only. Iran itself, not only have they all attacked us indirectly, including Iran in April and last week, the entire international community, I say this with, it's like my heart breaks, holds Israel as the aggressor and responsible one in this world. And here I want to take for a moment to look a bit forward. Because what's happened in the last few weeks? In the last few weeks, for the first time since this war started, Israel went on the initiative against Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the Islamic regimes of Iran's, they're like the best pupil ever. I know I sound sarcastic, but it's the best way that I can put it. Meaning they were established by their inspiration from the Islamic regime of Iran. Hezbollah is Arabic speaking. They are Lebanese. They are Shiite. And Hezbollah in the 1980s and in the 1990s very much influenced, but from the second Lebanon war, Hassan Nasrallah came in to be the Secretary General after Israel killed the one before him in 1992. Hassan Nasrallah has been the Secretary General from 1992. Hassan Nasrallah spoke, excuse me, I have a heart, okay, not for Hassan Nasrallah. So the fact that I get to talk about him in past tense, for a moment, I'm going to say I almost want to smile, even though I hate doing things like that. But he spoke fluent Persian. He was a Shiite ideologue, and he was a Lebanese Arabic speaking. He's Lebanese and Arabic. That's where he was born. That's where he was raised as a Shiite. And he was a demagogue, top of the class in sending out in an exceeding eloquent orator way the most horrific terror ideas ever. And it's not just about, by the way, the destruction of Israel, but because I'm in Israel and I share a border with Lebanon and Hezbollah is on the other side, I focus mostly on that. Because Hezbollah, as the best pupil, was the one that was helping the Islamic regime of Iran with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard export the ideas of the revolution, the ideology of the revolution, not only to destroy Israel, but to have this Islamic regime like Iran all over the world. Hezbollah went and built the missile capabilities of the Houthis in Yemen. Israel, 3 weeks ago into this whole campaign, killed the top Hezbollah operative who had been the one who had built the rockets, the rocket cache of, that's not just rockets, because it's actually cruise missiles and very long range UAVs and projectiles. And we killed him in Lebanon. We openly claimed it. And the Houthis in Yemen fired rockets at us. Hezbollah built, a top Hezbollah Arabic-speaking Lebanese operative, built the Hezbollah in Iraq capabilities. We killed him in these last 3 weeks. And the Hezbollah in Iraq, and both of them, both the Houthis in Yemen and the Hezbollah in Iraq, have fired different projectiles against Israel. it kind of goes under the radar. That may not be the right term for it. One of the Houthi UAVs with the Israeli air defense missed, and it hit inside Tel Aviv in an apartment building. It killed a man in his apartment at 3 a.m., very near the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. And I say all of this because what Israel did in the last 3 weeks is that we've gone on the initiative. It's more than 3 weeks. To me, the turning point of Israel going on the initiative, which is as if not connected to Hamas and to the 101 hostages, but it is part of this multi-front that we live in. Every time I would talk about it, I would say, you're all focused on the Gaza Strip, and my heart goes out. My heart goes out to the Gaza Strip completely. I don't know how to contain that. They have 101 hostages. They could let them go every single day and it would be over. No, Hamas holds them. But Hamas gained enormous spine and strength from the backing of Hezbollah, the backing of the other Hezbollahs, the backing of the Houthis, let alone the backing of the Islamic regime of Iran. And in the background, and I say that very quietly, and the backing of the entire international community that never call them out and call out Israel all the time. And I want to be held on the highest moral platform. However, let's talk about Hamas, Hezbollah, and all of the different horrific, hateful ideologies that they tout. And the Islamic regime of Iran, over the last 15 years, pretty much from the end of the 2006 Second Lebanon War, took advantage in that sense of Hezbollah's capabilities inside Lebanon. And there's an open supply route. And what Israel is doing now is, one, attacking the C's, as we call them, the command, control, communications, computers. And that was something that Israel has been doing pretty much from the targeting of what is essentially Hezbollah's chief of staff. That was at the end of July, same night that Ismail Haniyeh was killed. Ismail Haniyeh, the not political leader of Hamas, just the outside leader of Hamas. I hate when we use the terms political leader. It suddenly turns them into nice people who have cocktails. They're planning terror around the world. But I went off, I come back. And so from the end of July, I started to see a change in Israeli proactive action against leaders, that would be the command, against the control centers, the headquarters, against the communications and computers. That has to do also with all of their different systems. And what Israel has been physically attacking, both in the strongholds in the heart of Beirut, in the neighborhood, which is mainly the Dahya, it's the southern portion, southern suburb of Beirut itself. We have been attacking weapons. People are always like, what does that mean? So I'm going to ask you not a hypothetical question in that sense, but as you're watching me right now, would you agree to have in your living room a cruise missile? Would you agree to have under your apartment building rockets, missiles, UAVs, suicide drones under your apartment building? Would you agree to have RPGs under your child's bed in the children's room? Would you agree? And I say that because Hezbollah is both part of the Lebanese Shiite community. It is part of the Lebanese Shiite community. And what Hezbollah has sold for many, many years is that they are the protectors of Lebanon against the Israeli aggression. Hezbollah attacked us every single day in Israel from October 8th. I'm going to say something which sounds odd. Israel was very restrained from October 8th until the end of July when it came to Hezbollah, because we have hostages in the Gaza Strip. As I said, Hamas can let them out any single day. This would be over. But for Hamas and for Hezbollah, hostages are a strategic bargaining chip. They don't view the hostages as human. They don't view them as something humanitarian that needs to be exchanged. They view them as a bargaining chip. And the worst part, I don't know if there's the worst part, all of this is too horrific for words, is that for the Hamas and for Hezbollah, because Hezbollah held Israeli soldiers, dead soldiers, years, is that hostages are a bargaining chip both alive and dead. And for Hamas, what I'm saying now makes my heart break. They were worth more dead than if they were rescued, meaning they rather kill them than allow Israelis to get to them. As we all know, the 6 that were executed a day before probably Israeli troops would have gotten near to where they were. I've gone all over the place, and I'm going to try and bring this together in a sense with different prospects. Weakening the Islamic regime of Iran, meaning not allowing them to be the destabilizer, the supplier of the weapons, the one that brings in. I don't know how to stop the ideology. People keep asking me about that, and I'm like, world, don't you want to stop this horrific ideology? But I do know, Israel, how to degrade significantly the military terror capabilities. And that's what we're doing, both against Hamas in the Gaza Strip and against Hezbollah inside Lebanon. And in time, I imagine, because Israel has both attacked in Yemen and allegedly both in Syria, maybe in Iraq, and all of this multi-front war, the entire context is being presented as Israel is the problem. Meaning, Israel, if you would just stop, it would all be done. Stop in the Gaza Strip. If you stop your attacks, everything will be done. And I want to be clear, the hostages are a bargaining chip. If we stop right now, cold turkey, if we take all of our troops out, we still won't get back our 101 hostages. They are a bargaining chip. That's the way Hamas views it. And I say that because I find it so hard to say that inside Israel as well, because I want them to come home. I need them to come home. That aspect of looking at it only through what can Israel give, has strengthened terror armies in the Middle East. And the only language, sadly, that the terror armies understand is when we attack their capabilities. And in the last week and a half, the ground attack that Israel has done against the Radwan infantry special forces that Hezbollah built, it's a terror infantry special force of thousands of Hezbollah fighters with all of those embedded weapons in the kilometer to 2 north of the Israeli border. We have been systematically, slowly, and carefully destroying the weaponry and trying to destroy the terrorists that are there. It doesn't stop the ideology. You're absolutely right to that question. How do you de-radicalize and change ideology? The one suggestion I'm going to make is that I'd love it if my country was perfect and unblemished and that we didn't have extreme voices inside Israel as well. But the first thing I'm going to say is that you don't allow the extreme ideology to become acceptable. And the last point that I'm going to make right now is that when we look at the multiple fronts, that's our challenge right now. For me as an Israeli, my biggest challenge, my many challenges is that for me specifically, Miri, the worst part is how isolated and I think that Israel is right now. How can it be that we are at the forefront of fighting both the ideologies and the different aspects, and we are being blamed, vilified, shown as being the aggressor, let alone all of the other terms that I don't even want to put on the table right now. So I talked and I talked and I talked and I talked and I talked. I'm going to stop right now. Lily, feel free to tell me if I have more time or if I should start answering Q&A. I haven't really been looking.
I'm happy to open it up to questions. Thank you so much, Miri. We could truly listen to you all day. Participants, now it's your turn. Please submit your questions via the Q&A feature on Zoom. Meanwhile, I'll take the privilege of the first question. With Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, it feels like the floodgates are open. How do we reestablish military deterrence reputationally? And how do we reestablish psychological security for the Israeli people?
It's an amazing question. And I'm immediately going to say that in my answer, I'm not going to apologize, but I'm going to say straight off that I'm going to rub some people the wrong way. And I want you to be aware of that. I'm not doing it to rub you the wrong way. But for me, from my professional point of view, the only language that brings back deterrence is not rhetoric, it's action. And I say that very sadly, I wish it was otherwise. Meaning I can talk, that doesn't do it. When I act, people notice. The terror organizations, specifically Hamas and Hezbollah, the Houthis are, say, I'm leaving that just for the moment because it's that much further away, but let's take Hamas and Hezbollah. Hamas in the Gaza Strip, but Hamas also exists throughout the West Bank. Hamas, by the way, also exists inside Lebanon. They're inside the Palestinian arena in Lebanon. Hezbollah, the two of them are very similar in that they are not only a terror army, they are also, and this is the term of hybrid, they are a social movement. I absolutely acknowledge that. And when I say a social movement, that means that, Lily, for you and me, women, perhaps we're mothers, we have children, we want to send them to schools, we want to have good education. By the way, I'm being very misogynist at the moment right now and saying that about mothers as if fathers don't want that. But Hezbollah and Hamas are Muslim charities that absolutely go and build the health clinic and the school, and they give a great place, for the kids to come in. That means they give them summer camps, and they give them all the different additional after-hour activities that you want as parents for your children to grow into. And they bring them in, and then they teach them. And as we all know, education is centered. So when I talk about the deterrence, sadly, the language of the military terror armies is that I have to destroy terror armies. I can't eradicate them. I'm not going to erase them. But the deterrence is that the actions that they take, we can defend against. That doesn't mean that nobody's going to be killed in Israel. We're in a horrible war. And it absolutely, I so understand the term that everybody says of disproportionate. How can it be that so many Gazans have been killed? And now so many Lebanese are being killed. And look at Israel, aside from October 7th, everybody says like aside from October 7th, but aside from October 7th, Israelis have barely been killed. And I say, we can't be penalized, okay, for having built actively defenses. They have fired into Israel in the last year between Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, all of the different ones into Israel in the last year have been fired over 30,000 projectiles. I'd like to ask you all in the world, okay? Just in the last day, it's been 190 just from Hezbollah. And I think the numbers are going up as I sit here right now. And you go, yeah, but it doesn't do anything. And I say, you do realize that we invested in air defense. And we invested in telling Miri that when there's a siren, go to your safe place. And I know where my safe place is. And when I hear the siren outside, I know what to do. And that at the end, we all have been acting responsibly. It's like, oh yeah, you guys have protection, so you can't do anything. I'm like, if you don't do anything against those terror military capabilities, sadly, wonderful people listening to me right now, you get an October 7th. So what we're doing is we're destroying those capabilities. And by destroying those capabilities, what you gain is deterrence. I want to be clear. You cannot erase terrorism because the ideology stays. And at the end, they're going to go and get more weapons. But I can destroy the capability to do the mega terror attack. As I say here in this case, both of them are terror armies, and both of them on purpose embed themselves inside. They are part of the civilian population and they embed themselves in it. It's the two different sides of a coin. I'm not going to accuse any mother or father anywhere of being extreme. They can look at themselves in the mirror. I am going to say that on October 7th, in addition to the thousands of trained terror militants that came into Israel with a plan, sadly, I can say, thousands of Gazans came in after them and did even more atrocities. And those weren't the trained Hamas. So then people say to me, yeah, that's the rubble. The rabble, I probably said that wrong, the rabble, the ones with the torches. Sorry, that was, again, I have to have a sense of humor. It's the only way I contend with this. Because October 7th was just too horrific for words. But what does it mean about the education system? What does it mean when you teach people to hate? That's one thing. And I am against teaching people to hate amongst my people, I detest the fact, and I will anywhere. There's a different aspect, which is the dehumanizing completely. And we have been completely, we Israelis, we Jews, have been delegitimized, dehumanized. And what we're doing now with deterrence is showing that we will act, and that deters. And again, it's not about, people always say, so what, you're going to have afterwards Hamas and Hezbollah and the Islamic regime. It shouldn't be just us against them. All of the world should be against these ideologies, and we, Israel, should be way better. Always. I want us always to be as best as we can. But to talk the language of terrorists, you have to attack them in their terror military capabilities, because everybody notices rhetoric versus action, certainly in the Middle East.
Thank you so much. I love this question. If you were advising the prime minister, what would you tell him to do to win this war?
Thank you for the question. I am not advising the prime minister. I'm going to think about this one, and I'm going to say it in the following way. I think that Israelis right now, Israelis domestically, need a figure that they feel represents everybody. And at the moment, I say sadly that the prime minister does not represent everybody. And it's a very hard thing to say. I'm saying that to a very diverse audience. I'm not sure how much you understand that in that sense. I'm not necessarily against this prime minister or any other one, but right now you have to talk in a language which is inclusive and not divisive. And so the first thing that I would say is that somebody has to tell them the language to be inclusive and not divisive, because it hasn't made this year any easier. 2, I absolutely, not just militarily, because I'm a military person, but as an Israeli who wants to live here, as somebody who talks to all of my friends, and my friends are mainly not military, there is very strong support for the proactive action that Israel is taking now against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And again, not because we want to be in war, we want to end war, but because Israelis can live with the rockets, because we built the defense system. It's horrible, but you can live with that. I, who live in the center of the country, I'm in Tel Aviv, right? I can't live with the idea that ground forces can come in on motorcycles and pickup trucks and jeeps and drive all the way to here, not just to the north, and come and knock on, and do what they did October 7th next to the Gaza Strip and quite far in. And Hezbollah wanted to do the same thing. So I would say in that sense that it's strong support for this decisive military action against Hezbollah and Hamas. And then breathe in deep and say, we need the world. It's not just about wanting and needing. I want to be part of the world. People keep saying to me, at the end, us Jews, we're alone. And I say, at the end, us Jews, maybe we're alone. But the thriving Israel had to do with a society, as I said, that inclusiveness, our security, which is our military might, and we absolutely have military might, even if it colossally failed on October 7th. But it's also about being part of the world. And being part of the world is not because I want to go on vacation to, Greece. Being part of the world is because our economy is an economy that was based on export. We're not a country that imports. And so when people say, so you'll be alone, I'm like, if Europe doesn't do business with us, the United States doesn't do business with us. And in the geopolitics of the world right now, with what Russia is doing, with what China is doing, and they're in cahoots economically with Iran, with the Islamic regime of Iran. China buys from them oil, that's pretty big. And Russia buys from the Islamic regime of Iran the projectiles, all of the different types of drones. Okay, that's an income for the Islamic regime of Iran. And I look at all of that and I say, so that the third aspect would be, can we reach out a bit better to our allies? And that means most definitely in the give and take, where all Israelis are like, oh, because we're not the 51st state of America. Absolutely not. Having said that, I would say, I really do feel inclusiveness domestically within the military capabilities that are there, and to understand that a war at the end ends. And when it ends, that's what's called diplomacy. It's not about sitting down at cocktails and having peace, but it's about arriving at some kind of a resolution with the term that you used before of deterrence. And that we can't do alone. We need to do that with our associates. And I'm very, very worried of our becoming more and more the pariah state of the world. And that's really worrying. So those were my 3 comments. And who knows what will change.
The next question comes from an alumnus. Which way is the Israel-Iran war headed? What can be Israel's possible response to Iran's latest missile attack?
So it's the question that everybody wants to know right now is, okay, so what are you going to do with Iran? So first, I'm going to take you a moment back to the last half an hour and say, it's not just about Iran. Israel is fighting a multi-front war. We're one country. We're 10 million people. Yes, we have a military. It doesn't stand alone in that sense, but having our military means that, like, everybody I know are either called up into reserves, not in reserves. You want to have an economy too. So you have to sustain the capability to do the destruction. Again, 101 hostages come back, it would be different. But you asked about Iran. If I go back, I'll give a 4th recommendation to the Prime Minister. I can do it in that way. The Islamic regime of Iran should not be an Israeli problem. The Islamic regime of Iran should, to a certain degree, is a world problem, but the world is like, I can't take that. The reason I can't take that is because the Islamic regime of Iran, the only country that it threatens with annihilation, they say it openly. Go read Khamenei. He tweets on X, for God's sake. By the way, he tweets on X in Hebrew. He wants me to read it. And he calls for my destruction. I'm not going to say every single day does he tweet that, but most days. And so when you say what Israel should do with Iran, I'm going to push back at you and say what the world should do with Iran. But the world is not doing, and I can't just sit around and wait for the world to do. So that's the second aspect of what's there. In the issues of deterrence within the Middle East, right now, Iran and Hezbollah, and that's very good from my perspective of these horrific ideological regimes not being the ones who set the tone for what's going on right now. I don't think that we're perfect, and we have lots of problems. But at the end, with our warts and our pimples, we're a democracy with all of our challenges. And yes, there's the occupation in the West Bank, and that is horrible. This isn't, but for a moment, I need to look around and say, the Islamic regime of Iran is the destabilizer, not just of the Middle East. It threatens all around here. And again, it's not about good, nice democracy. I don't know that all democracies are nice. It's not even about that. So I think that for deterrence, Israel needs and will act against Iran. It's about deterrence. As I said, you can't just talk here. You just talk here, everybody, that's the arena that I live in. And I say it sadly. I'd love it to be different because I live here and I'm going to continue living here. And it's not about I have the strength, so I'm going to do so. It's about deterrence and about who defines what's going on. I don't think that Israel needs or has to do an overt attack. I think that there are lots of other ways to do things where the Iranians understand and we understand and the world understands, but it's without, as I put my hand up like that, it's without the, see what we did to you. Subtlety is an important part. And at the end, again, I want to live here, not at war. I want you to take note of my terms. I didn't say in peace. All I'm asking right now is not at war. To not be at war, I need to have deterrence. To have deterrence, I need to be part of the world. That's part of my deterrence. But I also need, in the Middle Eastern arena, to show action. Because by showing action, I both bring on board the Middle Eastern players, the Sauds and the Emiratis, and that they know that we'll act. Nobody else does. And I don't like that we are alone or that we act alone, but I understand the importance of how that impacts us. So yes, I think there will be an event. I don't know if it'll be one thing. It could be overt. Somebody may make that decision. Overt is overt. You go with airplanes and you do it, and it's you and it's Israel. When you do something like that against Iran, it's not the Houthis in Yemen. You don't know if everybody goes there, comes back. That's a much bigger issue. And you can do covert, same planes, but covert. And you can do covert, not planes. Allegedly in Ismail Haniya, according to the world, that's what Israel did. There are a lot of different ways that you can do that.
Thank you. Could you explain the significance of the recent attack in Damascus?
So Bashar al-Assad, it's like, here we are, 2024. Bashar al-Assad is known as the butcher of Damascus. The Arab League, which only has 22 member states of Arabic-speaking states that are North Africa, Africa, and the Middle East, the Arab League expelled Bashar al-Assad because of what he did to his own people inside Syria. And that same Bashar al-Assad managed to sustain in the initially civil war, and then it became very much regional powers playing around inside the Syrian playground. Bashar al-Assad survived. I would say that his biggest accomplishment to date is that he is still the Syrian president. His presidency and his dictatorship rule is based on the backing of the Islamic regime that has, through the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, enormous presence in Damascus, Hezbollah from Lebanon that has enormous presence in Damascus, and his own family, because his brother, lovely man, that's me being sarcastic, go look up Maher al-Assad too. Maher runs the drug smuggling empire. They're a narco state, and they have been for almost a decade. Syria is the main manufacturer and exporter to the world of Captagon, which is it's a drug that's made in pharmaceuticals. And it's kind of what I'm going to call an upper, okay? But it's just like, and it's made in pharmacy complexes inside Syria and then smuggled out, because it's illegal worldwide, and smuggled out from Syria. This is Maher al-Assad is the one who controls it. Hezbollah was the one that first went into it with Iran. It's like, yay, all the good guys doing all sorts of great things. Let's export drugs too. So in attacking inside Damascus, it's both that, for example, is another way where you are targeting Iranian regime targets, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. This is not about the 90 million Persian-speaking Iranians. I personally would not even go after the oil or the ports, because again, we're not against the people of Iran. And by the way, inside Lebanon, Israel is not attacking Lebanese infrastructure targets. It's like, we're not blaming Lebanon for the fact that the Lebanese are weak. Having said that, I have a lot to say about that too, because in its own way, it becomes like our own problem, because it lives inside Lebanon. And I went off topic and I forgot where I was going with that one there. I was on about Damascus. So at the heart of Damascus, what Israel targeted in the past, and we never have taken responsibility, official responsibility, for what we've targeted in Damascus. Just take notice, there's differences on the way that Israel does things. We've taken responsibility for lots of attacks in Lebanon, in Beirut, in Yemen for that matter. But we're attacking, as far as I can say, allegedly, because it's Israel on its planes and you can see it, are Iranian Revolutionary Guards, who are the ones who are the liaisons, the attachés, the high-ranking ones, who transfer the weapons, who bring in the money, who do the training. And so again, you're going at the command, control, computer communication, all those different levels of that involvement there. Why not do it? And I'm like, because Bashar al-Assad is a good guy, and he's allowed, again, this is about deterrence and within the Middle East. When you do so, it's also to make sure that Bashar al-Assad doesn't suddenly think that he can do something, because he's hosting inside his country Iranian Revolutionary Guards, and Shiites that are from the Al-Quds force. It's kind of like I'll call it the Islamic regime's foreign legionary. There are Shiites inside on the Golan Heights from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Yemen, that are there to attack Israel, to get to Al-Quds, to get to Jerusalem. So it's part of that same element. Things we do. I don't know that these are good or bad answers, not about the answers, good or bad policies of Israel. I'll say that from my point of view, They're very effective in the Middle Eastern arena, and they're counter-effective in the world arena. Now make a choice, because that's not an easy choice. So when it comes to threats that you can stop the military capabilities, we're going to do the Middle Eastern arena. But it gets into the levels where it's counter-effective worldwide, because everyone's like, are you broadening it? And I'm like, they're already in, okay? One of the things that a lot of Israelis say right now is the whole world's against us anyway, so why not? I'm not one of those, okay? I don't think the whole world is against us. I think that we have been in a very, as I said, to me, the biggest failure, the biggest success of the other side of the biggest failure that Israel has had is that after a year, we are mainly, overwhelmingly blamed for the overall situation. That to me is our biggest failure. How can that be? But here we are.
Which leads me to our last question. How can we, as friends and supporters of Israel, help Israelis and help Israel right now?
You're here right now. That's already helping. And I just want to say thank you for that. You're taking out an hour of your time to listen to these different issues. I think that the biggest thing right now is not to be silent, which means when you hear that conversation in the room, which is accusing us from genocide down to every other original sin on earth, is to say, have you ever been to Israel? That may be scary, but not being silent right now, to me, is the biggest thing that you can do on a very personal level in the different places you go. This isn't about your going out and having a voice and going out onto the media. It's about not allowing, it's allowing me to be Jewish without being scared to be Jewish, and to talk up in that way of what that means. And you've been here, which is immediately more than every other person that you're probably talking.
Thank you, Miri, for your time and your insight. Participants, in the time remaining, I'd like to introduce the new chair of Project Interchange's Alumni Engagement Committee, Eileen Glasser-Wesley. She's going to share some information about some fantastic upcoming opportunities for you. Eileen?
Oh, thanks, Lily. And thank you, Miri, for your informative and insightful overview. We are all so appreciative of your time. Yes, my name is Eileen Glasser-Wesley, and I'm so honored to be the new Project Interchange Alumni Engagement Chair. I am a member of the AJC Board of Governors, and I'm past president of AJC Seattle. I'm also a proud founding member of the board of AJC San Diego, where I sit today. And last night, I happened to meet again the mayor of San Diego, Todd Gloria, who was a participant in Project Interchange in March of 2023. So if any of you are or are planning a trip to the West Coast, please look up one of our regions here. We would be happy to welcome you. I am really excited to share information about our PI Alumni Fellowship, which is open to all Project Interchange alumni. The PI Alumni Fellowship offers an unparalleled opportunity to enhance your understanding of Israel and anti-Semitism, while also giving you the opportunity to further your knowledge base, boost your advocacy skills, build your network, and engage in a robust exchange of ideas with other leaders. As a PI Alumni Fellow, you'll attend regular briefings virtually and trainings also virtually. Additionally, you'll take part in the AJC Global Forum in New York, April 24th to the 27th, with all travel expenses paid. Upon your return, you'll have the opportunity to host a capstone event in your community that highlights your experience with AJC at the Global Forum. Upon completion of the fellowship, you're eligible for a $1,000 travel subsidy to help fund a self-designated trip to Israel. The application to the PI Exchange Alumni Fellowship is due by December 20th. So I encourage all of you to participate in this. I also want to be sure you know about the Alumni Venture Fund. You can receive up to $2,000 to support your PI-inspired project or program. Proposals should connect to Israel or Jewish history, society, culture, or politics, or relate to the fight against anti-Semitism. Applications are due November 15th, and the fund is only available to the PI alumni family. In the chat, you'll now find links to more information and applications for both of these programs. I hope you'll take advantage, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Miri, and I look forward to seeing all of you hopefully sometime soon. Have a really good day.